Hello fellas, today, or maybe it's not another day for you, we are going to investigate the last topic of authentication and authorization, Microsoft Graph. There are a couple of pages. Let's start with the Graph. Discover Microsoft Graph. Graph is the gateway to data and intelligence in Microsoft 365. It provides a unified programmability model that you can use to access tremendous amount of data. In the 365 platform, three main components facilitate the access and the flow of data. First one offers a single endpoint. You can use REST API SDKs to access to that point. Microsoft Graph connectors work in the incoming direction, delivering data external to the Microsoft Cloud into Graph services and applications to enhance Microsoft 365 experiences, such as Microsoft Search connectors exist for many commonly used data sources such as Box, Drive, Jira, Salesforce. I have already investigated a bit. So the Graph connectors are those A and B, right? They are sending data to Graph connectors API. They're collecting data from various types of data source. This is on-premises data source. This is cloud-based data source. Yeah, basically the connectors are probably the adapters for database types, maybe files, maybe. Yeah, what sources can be connected? For example, gallery, databases, file systems, social networks, websites, right? Atlassian, Jira, Cloud, Google Drive, Kafka, Kinesis, a lot of. So the third one is the Graph Data Connect. Provides a set of tools to streamline security scalable delivery of the graph data to popular Azure data stores. The cached data serves as data sources for Azure development tools that you can use to build intelligent applications. I didn't read this one. Graph is the gateway, yeah, that's true. Then the powering platform, Data Connect provides a set of tools to streamline the same thing. Use Data Connect to access data on Microsoft Graph at scale, while allowing administrators granular consent on full control over their graph data. Data Connect streamlines the delivery of these data to Microsoft Azure. Then probably that tool is for fetching data from Graph. Beside the API, I believe, but let's see. Using Azure tools, you can then build intelligent apps that find you the closest expert on a subject area to you in your organization, automate knowledge, analyze meeting requests, provide insights into conference room utilization, detect fraud. When should I use Microsoft API or Data Connect? Exactly. Graph Data Connect provides a new way for you to interact with the data that's available through Microsoft API. Data Connect provides a unique set of tools that streamline the building of applications, all within the cloud. Access scope, single use or entire tenant, many users or groups, real-time, recurrent schedule, operates on data master, operates on cached of the data. Operates on cache of the data? Okay. Data protection. Data protected while in the source service, like data protection is in the cache of the data. This is for cached. Self-resource types, none. Admin, entire organization, resource types, select group of users, resource types and properties, excludes users, RESTful web queries, Azure Data Factory. Explore the integration patterns, see what's new. Learn about metered APIs and services in Microsoft Graph. Find out how to get an authentication token. Graph Explorer. No, I want to learn more about the data connects. Provides it. Okay, then for the cached data consuming for the cache data. Okay, query Microsoft Graph by using REST. Maybe we will dive into it. Maybe we will. I don't know. Let's see. Enables you to access cloud service resources. After you register your app, get authentication token, you can make requests to the API. It defines most of its resources, methods, and numbers in the OData namespace. A few API sets are. What is metadata? Graph API metadata. Metadata document is published at service root. You can view service document for the version 1 beta. Collection of resources. Yes. View a specific resource. Use okay, view a specific resource from a collection by alternate key. graph, then the version, then the meta path. The metadata allows you to see and understand Microsoft Graph data model, including the entity types. Okay, complex types and enumerators that make up resources represented in the request-to-response packages. The metadata also supports defining types, methods, enumerations in the corresponding OData namespaces. The majority of the Microsoft Graph API is defined in the OData namespace. Microsoft Graph. A few APIs are defined in sub-namespaces, for example. You can use the metadata to learn the relationships between entities in Microsoft Graph and establish URLs that navigate between those entities. View a collection of resources. Yeah, okay. I think I understood already. A few API sets are defined in their subnamespaces, such as the call records API, which defines resources like call record. What is this? Call record? Single peer-to-peer call or group call between multiple participants, sometimes referred to as an online meeting. A call record is created after a call or meeting ends. Okay. Subnamespaces. Unless explicitly specified in the corresponding topic, assume types, methods, and numbers are part of the graph. Okay. Call REST API method. Graph Microsoft version resource, such as metadata or something, and then query parameters. After you make a request, a response is returned that includes status code, yeah, of course, 200 response message, the data you requested, or result of operation. The response message can be empty for some operations. Next link, if you request returns numerous data, you need to page through it by using the URL returned in. HTTP methods. For the CRUD or methods, post, patch, put methods require a request body. Yeah, it's specified in JSON format that contains additional information, such as values or properties of resource. Version. Microsoft Graph currently supports 2 versions, 1 and beta. General available API. Use the version 1 version for all production apps. Beta includes APIs that are currently in preview, because we might introduce breaking changes to our beta APIs. We recommend that you use the beta version only to test apps that are in development. Don't use beta APIs in your production. Resource can be empty, complex type, commonly defined with properties and that differ from complex types. Always include an ID. Your URL includes the resource you are interacting with in the request, such as me, user group, drive, site. Often top-level resources also include relationships which you can use to access other resources, like me message or me drive. You can also interact with resources using methods. For example, to send an email, use me/sendmail. parameters can be all data system query options or other systems that method accepts to customize its response. You can use optional all data system query options to include more or fewer properties than the default response. You can filter the response for items that match custom query or provide another parameter for the method. For example, adding the following filter parameter restricts the message returning with filter, and then you give the column name, right? Email powered. Okay. Let's ask ChatGPT. What is data here? Short of Open Data Protocol is a standardized protocol for building and consuming REST APIs. It was developed by Microsoft and is widely used in web services, especially in enterprise applications like Graph, SAP, Dynamics. Okay. What OData does? Filter, select, order by top, skip, count, expand. Okay, some predefined keys. Very good. Let's continue then. Graph SDKs are designed to simplify building high quality. Graph SDKs are designed to simplify high quality, efficient, and resilient applications that access Microsoft Graph. The SDKs include two components, a service library and a core library. The service library contains models, request builders, and data generated from Microsoft Graph metadata to provide a rich and discoverable experience. The core library provides a set of features that enhance working with all the Microsoft Graph services, embedded support for read-to-write handling, secure redirects, transparent authentication, and payload compression. Improve the quality of your application's interactions with Graph with no added complexity while leaving you completely in control. The core library also provides support for common tasks such as paging, true collection, and creating batch requests. Code samples in this unit are based on the version 5.65 of the Microsoft Graph.NET SDK. Install the Graph.NET SDK. Microsoft Graph client is designed to make it simple. To make calls to Graph, you can use a single client instance for the life of the application. The following code examples show how to create an instance of a Microsoft Graph client. The authentication provider handles acquiring access tokens for the application. The different application providers support different client scenarios. For different details, about which provider and options are appropriate for your scenario. Scope, user.read, tenant ID, tenant client ID options, token credential options, authority hosts that Azure public cloud. Okay. First we set the scope with the scope and the options. And this is the URL. This is the scope. Function is this is the callback. Then we get code to response. The code is the token, right? It's not. It's an object probably. This device code credential. Then we pass a callback, tenant ID, client ID, options, scope. Callback inside the credential. It's weird. Then you pass it to option doesn't include scope. Option, what does the options? Not the URL. Okay. Read information from graph client.me.get. I got it. The graph and version 1/me can be called by graph client.me.get async. Retrieve a list of entities. Microsoft.graph, right? Very good. Graph.core. Retrieve a list of entities. Retrieving a list of entities is similar to retrieving a single entity, except there are other options for configuring the request. Filter query parameter can be used to reduce the result set to only those rows that match the provided condition. For example, subject should be equal to hello world. And just select those columns. Ordered by, delete an entity, messages, ID, and then delete. Very handsome, huh? Create a new entity. Calendar, new calendar, graph client, me, calendars, post async, calendar. Okay. Best practices. Authentication. To access the data in the graph, your application needs to acquire auth token and present it to Microsoft Graph in either of the following methods: HTTP authorization request header or graph client constructor when using a graph client library. Then there's only one way then, yeah? Authorization header. Use the Microsoft Authentication Library API MSL to acquire the access token. We learned about it. Apply the following best practices for consent and authorization in your application. Use least privilege. Only request permissions that are necessary and only when you need them. For the APIs, your application calls, check the permissions section in the method topics. For example, see creating a user and choose the least privilege. Use the correct permission type first. Okay, let's dive into this. Use least privilege. I know what it means, but I couldn't grasp what it means under the Graph API. Only request permissions that are necessary. Okay, then okay, it's about the scope. Maybe then maybe the application is able to call multiple scopes, but for a specific operation, if you want to call a specific endpoint, then it tells us to request a token which is only able to make that request. Use a correct permission type based on scenario. Permission type. If you're building an interactive application where a sign-in is a user present, your application should use delegated permissions. If, however, your application runs without a sign-in user, such as background, services, or daemon, your application should use application permissions. This is important. Should use application permissions. I'll take a note about it. Caution. Using application permissions for interactive scenarios can put your application at compliance and security risk. Be sure to check users' privilege. Ensure they don't have undesired access to information or are circumnavigating policies confirmed by an administrator. Consider the end user and admin experience. Directly affects end users and admin experiences. For example, consider who is consenting to your application, either end users or administrators, and configure your application to request permissions appropriately. Ensure that you understand the difference between static, dynamic, and incremental consent. Yes, we studied that. Static is the whole list you ask in front of the application, in front of you start using the application. Dynamic and incremental are the same thing. Then you ask little amount of permissions, then you request more when it's needed, and it's called dynamic, but I don't see it now here. Dynamic or incremental? No, dynamic, maybe dynamic. Request individual permissions at sign-in. Yeah, okay, this is what I told. Consider multi-tenant applications. Accept customers to have various application consent controls in different states. For example, tenant administrators can disable the ability for end users to consent to application. In this case, an administrator would need to consent on behalf of their users. Tenant administrator can set custom authorization policies, such as blocking users from reading other users' profiles or limiting self-service group creation to a limited set of users. In this case, your application should expect to handle 403 error response when acting on behalf of a user. Handle responses effectively. Depending on the request you make to graph, your application should be prepared to handle different types of responses. The following are some of the most important practices to follow. Ensure that your application behaves reliably and predictably for your end users. Pagination. When querying resource collections, you should expect that Microsoft Graph returns the results set in multiple pages. Due to server-side page size limited, your application should always handle the possibility that the responses are paged in nature, and use the next link property to obtain the next paged set of results until all pages of the result are set or read. The final page doesn't include the next link property. For more information, visit paging. Evolvable enumerations. Look, let's read the pagination again. I know what is pagination. What is the difference here? When querying resource collection, you should expect that the graph returns the results set in the multiple pages. Due to server-side page size limits, your application should always handle the possibility that the responses are paged in nature, and use next link property to obtain the next page set of results. Okay, until the pages of the result set are read. The final page doesn't include next link. What is this? Data next link located probably in the body, huh? Property in the response, in the body contains a URL to the next page of the results. Okay. Evolvable enumerations. Adding members to existing enumerations can break application already using these enums. Evolvable enums are a mechanism that Graph API uses to add new members to existing enumerations without causing a breaking change for application. By default, a get operation returns only known members for properties or evolvable enum types, and your application needs to handle only the known members. If you design application to handle unknown members as well, you can opt in to receive those members by using HTTP prefer request header. Couldn't get it. Let's ask ChatGPT. API evolution without breaking existing. One moment. Existing client applications. What are evolvable enumerations? Are special enumerations used by Graph that can grow over time. New values might be added by API team without warning. This poses a challenge for client applications that may not expect or handle new enumeration variables. How does Microsoft handle this? By default, Microsoft Graph API only returns known enum members, those that were defined at the time your application was generated or updated. This protects your app from being due to unexpected values. Opting in. If you want your app to be forward compatible, resilient to new enum values, you can opt in to receive unknown enum name members. How to opt in? Okay, if you just register yourself to include unknown enum variables, then you also get those too. Best practices for handling evolvable enums. Default behavior, opt in. Oh yeah, I understand. Storing data locally. Your application should ideally make calls to Microsoft Graph to retrieve data in real time as necessary. You should only cache or store data locally necessary for a specific scenario. If that use case is covered by your team terms of use and privacy policy and doesn't violate the API terms of use, your application should also implement proper retention and deletion policies. Exercise. New application. New registration. Register an application. Created .NET application. Azure Identity. Microsoft Graph. identity .env. After the variables, this is the interact browser credential option. This is the part we grab the token and go to create graph service client. Right line, get user profile. Get user profile function. Gets graph client. Yes. Me get. Which one is identity? Which one is coming from identity? Which HTTP method it is used to update a resource with new rules? How can I read rules here, man? Values. Used to update a resource with new values. Update, which is not post. This is for creation. These two are for update operations. Probably they mean put here, because it says values. Need not only one value. I think values, multiple values. Then you can make it happen with by put operation. Otherwise you can use patch, but you can only change one property. Which of the components of the Microsoft 365 platform, which of the components of the 365 platform is used to deliver data external? One moment. Which of the components of the Microsoft 365 platform is used to deliver data external to Azure? Deliver data external to Azure into Microsoft Graph Services and Applications. Data which is external to Azure into Graph Services and Applications. Then you use connector, right? This is in operation. Used to deliver data into Graph. Yes. Man. Look, if I ask ChatGPT, what will it say? Patch? Why? Purpose, to perform a partial update. Yes, exactly. Used to update resource with a new values. Update, only fields you specify. Yes, I know, used in. Exactly. Alternate put, complete. Patch, to update a resource with new values, especially in Microsoft Graph. Put, only when you are replacing the entire resource. Oh man. Can you then use patch for multiple values? Yes, absolutely. Multiple values. Okay, then this was confusing to me. You can use then multiple. Then the part of the object can be changed. But still, that question is not very clear, because the HTTP method used to update a resource with new values. How would you ask if your answer is put? Which HTTP method typically used to completely replace an existing resource? Not the update with the values, but completely existing resource. Okay. Yeah, I knew it, but sometimes not completely. We know sometimes some can, but they cannot be not completely correct. Okay guys, thank you very much, and see you later.